Hello and good time of day to all of you, my friends here on the Internet Chess Club. This is Grandmaster Alex Yermolinsky. How are you doing, guys? Okay, I just came back from China, but the first time in my life I traveled to this
I work round the clock. I want my blood sugar to stay in control, so I...
commercial. Yeah, first time I traveled to that exotic country. Obviously, I've heard a lot, as most of us. I don't know if you visited ever. Maybe you should share your opinion. Or maybe there are some Chinese players, or some people from China watching us now. I was very much impressed. Well, I didn't see mainland. I didn't see any of big cities. Well, went straight to the island of Hainan, which is way down south, South China Sea, pretty much across from Vietnamese coast, from Hanoi, if you wish. Impressive, very much so, that country's just building up, and new buildings, new roads. And we have a special place over there. The tournament, first Hainan International, it took place in what they call Cigar Town, which is basically one large convention center spread out, quite a few buildings there, and then all done in a nice mixture of styles. The hotel was called the Havana Hotel, so, well, indeed, it's a Cuban kind of Latin American style. It's some interesting connection because they grow tobacco in that part of the country and in China, and I tried local cigars. They're really excellent. So anyway, Cigar Town. Well, I brought a lot of pictures, but of course, with my technical expertise, I had a hard time processing them. So maybe when we return to the stock next week, then I'll have the pictures. Right now, all I have is chess, but no, chess was good enough. Anyway, the tournament attracted 67 players, I believe, in the open section, and quite a substantial prize fund. First prize was $15,000, and one would expect a whole lot of hungry players, second and third tier grandmasters traveling across the world, to try their chance. Because there were quite a few prizes over there. It took some effort from yours truly not to win prize money, considering that in round 6 I played on board 2 and I actually started the tournament very well. But the finish I totally butchered, only 1 out of 4, so that's 5 out of 9. But it's not about me, of course. The tournament was won by Yu Yanyi, young Chinese grandmaster. Well, I don't know where his ranking is now in China. Probably his second after Ding Liren. Why there's so few people watching this? I don't know. I mean, my job is to talk, That's I don't promote anything. Well, I promote this tournament, all right, Hainan International. Anyway, so Yu Yanyi. So after scoring, I believe, 8 out of 9 in this tournament, he raised his rating somewhere close to 2740. And obviously, Yu Yanyi made a name for himself a couple of years ago in Qatar, and the open tournament where he was able to defeat both Anish Giri and Vladimir Kramnik, who both had excellent tournament of their own. But in the end, it was the young Chinese who took the honors. And it really impressed me a lot. A very serious young man, is totally focused on his game. And while, of course, he was better than pretty much anyone in this tournament, the second highest rated player was Richard Rapport. But Richard was kind of out of shape in this tournament, and he only managed finally to get to board 1 and play Yu Yanyi in the last round, when he was already point and a half behind. So even if he won with the white pieces, he would not have taken the tournament. And he tried hard, but no, he lost. So Ultimately, the gap between Yu and Yi and Rapport reached 2.5 points. And indeed, Yu played much better in the tournament. Now, I want to show this game. It's a very sharp game, and also pay attention to the guy with the white pieces. Tsidipov. I'm sure you never heard of him. He's a young player, 20-year-old player from Buryatia, which is it's a republic in Russia, and it's like pretty much straight up north from Mongolia. So Buryats are ethnically, I guess, close to Mongolians. Anyway, I've never visited there, but maybe I will one day, because I befriended this kid and like him. He's a good player, and I looked at a lot of his games. So that's basically how I'm gonna structure the show today. Surprisingly, I'm gonna show you some games of Jamsaran Sidipov. But anyway, this is the main one. So he plays Yu Yani. This game, I believe, was played in round 7. So already a substantial gap, a full point, I think, was between Yu Yani, who had 5.5 out of 6. Yeah, if I didn't lose that game that I lost in, it was in round 7, yeah. So he had 5.5 out of 6. Yeah, I lost in round 6. I had a good game going against Wen Yang, a Chinese grandmaster, of course. But anyway, we'll talk about this later. So I almost got to play Yuan Yi. Instead, it was Tsidipov. Yeah, I visited your country, Turkey. Of course, you know, I visited it before, but just a couple of months ago, I played in Tekirdağ. Yeah, of course. Too bad you couldn't show up, you know. Well, we had a great time over there, and a great tournament. Hopefully I can come back. Yeah, ICC promotes my shows, of course, but yeah, Tihamir, you're here, okay, so no, well, who cares? Come on, you know, like, I mean, when you watch TV, do you really care how many people watch together with you? You watch it because you like it, right? I mean, I understand that you wish me all success in my business, so I would have tens of thousands of listeners, viewers, but if I had them, maybe I wouldn't be able to answer your tells. I'm not sure, you know, like, I mean, now I'm sort of focused on this. You're gonna love this. I mean, the games are tremendous. Shows the fighting spirit in the Hainan tournament. Okay, here we go. So the young Tsidipov is probably a year or two younger than you. Goes all the way into the Naidorf and then the knight d7 line. There's something interesting about this move, knight d7. It's been known for quite some time and known to be a risky move, but it's an interesting move order. I mean, black retains possibility of transposing into the regular Naidorf variation, obviously, with e6, but he wants to kind of mess up white's move order. There are interesting possibilities here. There's queen e2, for example, is a nice move. Anticipating queen b6, and then we can castle. And also queen e2, as it usually does, removes the queen from the d file. And after white castles, he will go, of course, f4, trying to play for e5. Anyway, but the move bishop c4 is also very logical, because it's your typical reply to all knight bd7 systems. Because of the weakness on e6, you will see, of course, it later in the game. But you, well, goes into this delayed variation of the poison pawn. So you may ask, why not just cover the pawn? Yeah, it's certainly possible. But then yeah, the mix of bishop g5 with the Fischer-Sozin attack. So I suppose it might just be h6, right? Bishop e3, queen c7. Not sure how white should play this. f3? Well, if he plays queen d2, then of course he allows knight g4. f4, knight c5. We actually looked at this line, I'm not quite sure, but this is really fascinating. Strange mix, right? Normally the pawn should go to e6. We even question the placement of the pawn to h6. Because if white gets to play his g4, g5, who's the genius gem behind China's great play? I don't know, I think the entire 1.4 billion people there. Well, in my opinion, there is... I mean, it's not the first generation of Chinese players that established itself on international level. This is already the third generation I encounter myself. I played 20 years ago against Yu Jingxuan and Su Jun. They were pretty decent players. They were, 2670 or so. All right. At that time, actually, it meant more than it means now. Then came the next generation with players like Peng Xiaomin and Zheng Zhang and Bu Xianzhi and, this good players. So they were already Nihua kind of knocking into this 27 territory. But the third generation of players who now in their 20s, I mentioned Ding Liren and of course Yu Yanyi, the hero of this tournament. And we have Wan Hao, and the young Wei Yi, of course, is very well known. So they've taken this even to next level. They play sharp chess, that's why I'm showing you this. So anyway, if you look at the stuff, right? I don't know if you analyzed this. Probably he did, because now it looks critical, because if black just says, okay, fine, e6, then white is gonna send the g-pawn forward. But maybe black has this. I was looking at this. This is really fascinating. h5 of all moves. Now it goes to this e4 pawn, and if e5, man, you got this. Or maybe not in this move order. First knight e4, white almost loses the queen, right? Now, God knows what black is gonna do here. Perhaps even g5. You can take on e5. This is not good for white. This bishop g4, it's so unusual. But that's the point of this strange system with knight d7. At a great risk, tactical risk. Black keeps the bishop open, and indeed, who knows? He can use the g4 square. There is a book called Chinese Chess School. Now, I don't know if it refers to Chinese chess, which is a different game, or to Chinese players who play regular classical chess. That's the problem, right? Whenever we say Chinese chess, it's kind of ambiguous. Well, so anyway, so instead of bishop c4, the young Buryat player, Jamsaran Sidipov, went into the poison pawn with the twist. Yeah. The twist is that white is actually not gonna play f4 yet. He has the idea of using this bishop on c4. And the move was queen c5 played. You did not play very quickly. So maybe he was checking his analysis, or maybe he wasn't sure. For example, maybe he wasn't sure about e6. Now, well, that's like in the good old days. Instead of all this English attack, slow rolling, developing, whatever, with the king safely castled and sitting on b1, white now is gonna have to try to bust the Sicilian the way they did it in the 1970s. Call up the spirit of Velimirovich. Bishop takes e6, of course. Yeah, alright. And Velimirovich, the author of the famous Velimirovich attack, obviously he was not alone. There were a lot of players that were studying and playing this Sicilian for both colors. And it's like the name of the game was, you have to sacrifice. The points where you sacrifice are e6, d5, f5, or b5. One of the four has to be played. Else, you get into a long endgame, which black is probably going to win. Oh, so there was a name. By Lu Wenjie. I don't know who he is. I'm sure it's an interesting book. Well, I just haven't seen it. Anyway, so this shot. Yeah. Knight takes. No direct attack over there on c7. And importantly, yeah, queen there. Of course, now f4. Yeah, I don't know. This knight is probably gonna sit there for some time. I mean, it's kind of awkward for black. This knight c5, you can take on f8 and grab on d6. The king's gonna be in the middle anyway, so this position appears quite dangerous for black. Appears to be this way. Only one pawn for a piece, but what piece that is. Amazing. Knight on e6. So to avoid that, Yu plays queen c5. And now bishop d5. Interesting concept, right? If you cannot put knight on d5, because the bishop was hanging, maybe the bishop will get the job done. Now I think this is quite bad. Because in this situation, white is about to play the rook to b3. Now, this is certainly not gonna cut it. Rook b3, rook c3. Yeah, rook b8 is too slow. What do you think, guys? Is e6 possible? But then we have this, right? I saw something similar in a game of Nakamura. Yeah, but black simply cannot hang in there with the queen. That's it. The queen gets pushed back, and then knight c7 is decisive fork. Yeah, it's crazy to take on d5. That's absolutely impossible. So, well, e6 was played. And now you have to give credit to the young player with the white pieces. Instead of a relatively safe capture, and then that. No, getting the pawn back. But black's happy, having traded his passive bishop on c8. Basically, white has no attack. White has some tactical tricks left based on active position of the rook. But I'm not sure white is gonna succeed. In the meantime, we have a clear weakness on c3, and then the pawn on e4 will be hanging by extension. Yeah, e6 loses. How Chinese players support themselves? By giving the sports ministry 65% of their prize winnings. This is how they support themselves. The system reminds me, I don't know if the numbers were the same, because I was... I mean, I myself was not in a position to participate in that, but they say in the old Soviet days, some percentage of money, 40 or 50%, money that won abroad, would be paid by the player back to the government, to the sports authorities, and in return, they basically take care of you, kind of people will get a stipend, and they have all the travel expenses to tournaments covered, and training, coaching, all that. I mean, I don't know. It's socialism, right? Okay, fine. We can sit there and talk, find points, of different economic systems, but, well, that's what they have in China anyway. 65%. Yeah, Nakamura won really something similar, very similar. I know, maybe exactly was the game. Maybe it went exactly this way. I'm not sure. But anyway, we're talking about a different line now, and here I believe that black will survive. But I gotta give credit to Tsudipov, because after e6 he says, well, don't care about the pawn, rook e1. Oh man, ain't that something, eh? It's probably not a good idea to take that bishop. At least Yu Yanyi did not take. He played knight to e5. Well, if you ask, hey, why not just complete the development? Well, the problem is that right here, the sacrifice is gonna gain in strength. This is a known pattern. Right now we get to take on g7, return to f5. Now, that's gonna be 2 pawns for a piece. And a great knight on f5, and all white pieces are poised to attack. It's gonna be real hard for black to survive that. Now, bishop e7 is a mistake. So you, who didn't want to take on d5, instead plays knight e5. Now, reply is this. White uses all the pieces. I like white style, eh? Now knight to b6. Okay. We got this far. Time to get the f-pawn involved. So is the top-rated player finally gonna get crushed in this game? It appeared so. Yeah, it's a similar idea, Satran chess, but the idea was the same, to move the, to attack the black queen and try to force it away from the c7 square. Happy holidays to everyone, of course. Some managed to keep some money abroad. It wasn't only Karpov. A lot of guys I know from the Soviet days, they try to leave some of the money there, open an account somehow, usually asking, the organizers, or the director of the chess club if they played some Bundesliga. But I mean, anyway, it's all in the past. Let's just look at the present. So now black has this problem of how to complete its development, and well, the solution found by Yu Yanyi is amazing. I don't know if it's completely correct solution. It doesn't lose the game. But I mean, shockingly, black begins to give up pieces. Instead of taking white pieces, as it's supposed to, he begins to give up his. So he plays bishop e7. I mean, what else? Maybe... Yeah, we could move the knight back now. Well, suppose takes here now, must take with the queen to keep b7 protected. Maybe white now will sacrifice the other way. What about this bishop on e6? Not such a bad piece, eh? I don't see black castling in this game somehow. I don't think so. Well, white, of course, wants to play e5. If he gets to play e5, then, well, all bets are off. Black may get mated. h6, there. g5. I'm sure white has tactical chances. The bishop will return to d4 with the pin. I mean, e5 is still in the air. Is that bishop d5? Bishop d5 quite possible. I don't know, I like white's chances here. I'm not sure. Well, I mean, we just have to look at these guys from kind of, I don't know, gamer's point of view. If we try to analyze every position like this with the help of the computer, we're just gonna get, I don't know, tired. And what are we gonna prove? Suppose computer shows some variations, and from human point of view, they hardly make any sense. I mean, you just have to play it, right? And as I said, in old days, like, you can see a game like this practically in every round of a big tournament. People just like to play those Sicilians. Okay. So bishop e7. Now, what came out of this? Capture. And now white pulled this bishop back. Now, the situation is quite alarming for black, because this is probably not so great. We're talking e5 here, of course. Yeah, if the black king is stuck in the center, then he's gonna get very little joy from his now 2 extra pawns. Yeah, that's gonna be trouble for sure. So, so he didn't want to take on d4. On the other hand, what to do? You castled. If he played bishop c5, white end would have this idea. So the bishop that is totally blunted now and unable to attack a6 finds some employment on the other side. But I think black would come out okay after knight d7. He's gonna get this knight back because he pinned it. Not quite sure what's gonna happen here. Capture on c8. Well, I don't know. I think there would be a better move, but you castled. And after knight takes c8, he played this. Seriously, he's like down 2 pieces. But one of the knights is trapped and the other one is pinned. How do you like the concept? If black somehow manages to win both knights, he's gonna be up 2 pawns. But I think the straightforward line bishop takes f6 was still quite good for black. We actually looked at this a little bit after the game. So here is the thing. Let's not waste time trying to save this knight because we can't. No, we have to do this. Takes. And rook takes f6. Interestingly enough, that the bishop on d4, which is greatly positioned for all sorts of endgame play, and certainly looks better than the bishop on b3, is rather useless for middle game play. It's not helping to defend the king, and it's not doing much damage to the white king. In positions with opposite color bishops and major pieces present on the board, initiative is the key. So static factors such as material or even better placement of the pieces is rather less important. Besides here, white has some positional trumps as well, because it's got the f file. So I thought queen is 7, possibly rook there. Now what next? This? Okay, fine. Queen h6. Already some threats in there. Bishop takes. I know, I prefer white here. It may be strange, but I mean, tactics. The rook on f8. I mean, white's not joking. The next is gonna be queen there. Maybe bishop e3 is the move. Yeah, maybe there is something. Maybe there is this one. But then okay, we got this pawn back. This doesn't look bad for white, right? How can this be bad? Well, his king is safer and it's not endgame yet. It's not important that the pawns are split. So anyway, I believe after bishop takes f6, white would probably have somewhat better chances. So Yu's outrageous idea of giving up 2 pieces doesn't lose by force, but possibly it does not equalize either. So instead, c3. Yeah, that may be a bit slow, but nonetheless white is still fine. So he improved his position in the center, was about to move the queen to h6, so this is forced, and wisely black goes back. Now, black has an extra pawn. Fair enough. Queen f2. Rook there. And now black begins to scramble. You was long time. It's a great move because he's preparing to play rook c3. See, without rook c3, he cannot oppose white's attack with the rook left. So that was nice. d5, and now he kind of pins everything. I think here, from a practical point of view, Tsidipa probably should have played that. Okay, so I mean, his bishop was way more active as the outcome of d5. So was able to break through that defensive formation. And now with the threat to double up, white just gets the pawn back. I mean, isn't white somewhat better here? You can put the bishop on f5, you can double up on the d file. I mean, the bishop on e6 is much more active. I think I would take white. Anybody would take white here. I don't know if the technique would be enough to beat Yu and Yi, but certainly that's the easiest way to proceed. But perhaps in the heat of the battle, you know, the young player didn't want to trade queens. So instead he went rook f1. Long procedure, but no, well, it works. Eventually unpins. Now the threats become serious. Capture, sacrifice, e5 is forced. Well, yeah, I played this kind of stuff with black. Coming from my ugly rousers with those double pawns. It's a pretty difficult position for black, actually. But Yu handles it well. I thought at some moment white had to look to play d6, but I'm not sure it when. So he did this. d6 to take on f7. Trade the passed pawn for this, but activate the bishop even more and get closer to the king. But here we're dealing with the particular problem of capture followed by rook c1, so maybe it doesn't work. In time scramble, some moves were played. With this exchange, black greatly improved his chances. He's probably not worse anymore. Very skillful play. And bishop f4. Nice shot. Has to take with the queen, and now white basically decided to force a transition to the opposite color bishop endgame. Now, this tournament was played with a time control of 90 minutes plus the increment for the whole game. So there was no relief at move 40. Casual survives. Yeah, I don't know. I already said my piece. I don't know. I have nothing to add. Except for a couple more suspicious looking games that I played on the black side because I just can't stop playing it. Oh. Yeah. Okay, anyway, so the players didn't get any relief time-wise. But Yu shows another great quality of fighting player. Despite this game being very difficult and the struggles that he had, and one may say that he barely survived, he's ready to seize the moment and try to play for a win. You know, in this position, the objectively has to be drawn. He plays f5. Now, from casual suicide variation to, okay, another Yermo territory, opposite cover bishop endgames. Passed pawns are critical over there. Now, some passed pawns that can be blockaded, they almost don't matter. Well, they only serve as decoy. But passed pawns that are not well blockaded, well, they can win the game for you. So that's the right move. And from the defensive standpoint, this is what you do. You know why? Because, okay, here you can say that it attacks 2 pawns. But even, bishop f3. But even without this factor of attacking that pawn, the key thing is, okay, let's just suppose, that this happens. I'm not even sure that white should take this pawn on h7. I'll be totally honest with you. You take this pawn, you allow the king to go through. That means that the pawns will get to e4 and c4. Now, if the white king is not going to be able to support the pawns, so even 2 connected passed pawns, I mean, it's not like connected passed pawns are essentially important as opposite cover bishop and endings. Sometimes split pawns are more effective. Well, we like split pawns in opposite cover bishop endgame as much as we like connected pawns in rook endgames. In rook endgames, we need connected passed pawns because our king supports one of them and the other one covers from the checks. Here it's not the case. Actually, I think here black has winning chances. Maybe he's not going to be able to win. Alright, the pawn will travel to c3. The white bishop will get around. Same thing, right? Something like this. Then we need to do what? Yeah, there is some use of these pawns. Like plan was, okay, it's probably a bad move here. So something like this. Have that pawn, and then king there and king there. And then split the defenses. It's essentially how this game was won. But mistake, of course, is the move g4. It's outrageous. No, you must do this and must do that. Here, there. Now it has to come this way. g5. King there. I'm improvising. Saving grace, possibly. Time to deflect. See, these pawns are only good for deflection. Deflect. Let's run this line down. Now, I assume that he needs to win the bishop. Of course. What else? a4. It's probably winning, you know what? Yeah. I just discovered the correct square cover. Yeah, let's see what happens, when these 2 pawns go. Even the 2 connected pass pawns, they weren't able to do much. Because the white king was not able to support. Forget about this. Let's do it my way. My way is to not to fall for this kind of stuff. Please don't. We need to stop the pawns on the same diagonal. Fine. Let's just say that this pawn gets to c4. That's what I want. Actually, now I can take. This is what I'm talking about. I'm stopping the pawns on the same diagonal. I don't allow black to play e4. This is so basic. Now I'm there. You come this way, I'm here. And I'm stopping them on the same diagonal. And I'm gonna follow the black king. Okay, so he moves the bishop somewhere. I play my move a4, doesn't matter. Now, if the king goes there to support e4, I'm gonna travel with the king to f3. This is how you make those draws. Might go bishop d1 and king f3. All right, maybe, but as I said already, in time trouble, when you have to make this shift, and from tactical play to play in the endgame, often mistakes are made simply because players don't have. I mean, they still try to calculate things, but no, if you calculate and you look at bishop takes h7, but maybe that's not the right move. Maybe you have to just rely on your basic knowledge of. Obviously, calculation is needed too, but you have to look where to calculate. And if you firmly understand that the bishop has to control the diagonal and it should stop black from playing e4, maybe it's easier for white to reach a draw like this. Unfortunately for young Jamsaran Sadipov, it wasn't the case. He took, and now this position became exceedingly difficult for him to play. So he played. Critical moment comes soon. A5. He didn't even play g4. You're like, how could he not play g4? No, well, because there is this move. Now, the only way to make this pawns relevant is to try to support them. And then black just abandons this and goes, I don't know, bishop e7 or bishop d8, I'm not sure. Maybe bishop e7. Now what? If white just waits, maybe black should play h6. Yeah, it's not gonna hurt. You wait. Now the king comes. It's just impossible to even move the pawns. This. I mean, white has no future in counterattack, right? Because the two pawns. So he has to go back. Now, once again, he's going to get busted. When these two pawns, even if they're only separated by one file, they just gone too far. They're going to be both on the third rank. Now, the question is how the black king is going to get around, but I think he will be able to do this. Similar to how Yu Yanyi did it in the game. c3, king d1, and now this way. Of course. No, the game is over. He's gonna go king f2. Yeah, on that pawn. Well, the problem is that when you don't stop those pawns, even if they're separated by one file, if you don't stop them on the same diagonal, then eventually you're going to have to give up the bishop for this too. Because he comes to king f2, there you stop from e2, and then he's just going to do c2 deflection. So important what's going to be left on the board. If it wasn't for the a-pawns, the game would have been drawn. But the a-pawns are present, and it's the right cover square on a1. So black will win. There is one more thing, please do not think of improving your position by putting the pawn on a3. That would be terrible, because in the end, when you win the bishop, it's going to be a theoretical draw against the dark square bishop. You don't want to block the a2 pawn, allow him to stay on b1 with the stalemate. No. You want to keep the pawn on a5. It's just fine where it is. It's a win. There's nothing to talk about here. Next is e3 and king f2. I don't know. Well, I'm thinking maybe the only hope here would be to play g5 maybe. I don't even know if that's gonna save white. Give up the pawn on f5. Try to get around attack h7. But we already know that it's not gonna guarantee white any safety, even that. So anyway, it's a difficult endgame. Alright, let's see the end of it. This was played. Now, nice technique over there. So he fixes the pawn on g2. And now at the last moment, white didn't show maximum resistance on the next move. So the king is circling around. So this, followed by e3 and king g3. It was essentially important to try to follow the black king. For example, this way. And then that. Well, the problem from black's point of view is that he wants to do this, but he needs to take both pawns. He won't be able to do this because his bishop is too close. So there's still possible to play bishop e6. You don't have c2. Then it becomes a draw, right? The white king comes. So this has to be set up by improving the bishop first. So maybe this move. Yeah. He plays bishop c2. Now something like this. Now the win is not guaranteed here. Now e2 is not going to do anything because of this. So maybe white could still defend, even this one. But he had to follow the king, and Jamsaran Tsidipov was not able to do this. And as it went, it became hopeless. The king got to f2 and okay. Wow, what a game. Yeah. Alright, so congratulations due, of course, where credit is due to Yuan Yi. He had a fantastic tournament. I was watching his games, and this was probably one of the least convincing games that he won. But, I mean, if you are to score 8 out of 9 in an international Grandmaster tournament, you have to have a little bit of tailwind. And he fully deserved it. Tactics. Another exciting finish here. That's between Jumabayev, a player who finished third. He's from Kazakhstan, and well, my new star, young Jamsaran Tsidipov. Tactics incredible in this game. The finish beautiful. It was a sharp game where white obviously had to walk with the king to escape this danger zone. Black was able to get the pawn back, but realistically, if white plays the right move, probably queen b1. White is totally out of danger. I mean, endgame. Who cares? Knight on e4 cannot be inferior to that bishop. White has attacking possibilities to attack f7 or some perpetual checks. White is never gonna lose this game. If anything, I prefer to be white here. I think there is a chance to combine some threats and do something, while the b pawn is hardly a factor yet. Instead came knight g5 in mutual time trouble. Blunder. Phew. Okay. Yeah, I don't know about this endgame, opposite cover bishop endgame. I haven't finished analyzing it. I have a feeling that it may still be a draw, but white didn't know or forgot the underlying principle, which is always to follow the opponent's king with your king. The king easily gonna outmaneuver the bishop, but the king, it's always the duel of the kings. Okay, anyway, so let's look at this tactics. So looks like black is about to win everything. Queen takes d3, grab grab the queen on e1 or simply get the exchange. Comes check. And then f5. Well, you know, when under attack, we're always kind of reluctant to open our king. But sometimes a boxed-in king is even worse, right? Maybe a king needs some elbow room. In this situation, that was the case. Black absolutely had to take on f5. I think it's winning. Now, if white tries to attack to take the pawn on f5, then the right move is just this. This is totally ineffective because you got queen f4. There's nothing to talk about. The white rook is hanging still. So trade queens and then win the rook and then up rook in the exchange. So rook takes d2 would be forced, but then I think just this and that. No, up to exchange with the passed pawn, easy win. Yeah, g takes f5, but time trouble, adventures. Bishop takes d2. Now watch this. Takes. Oh well. Now if you take this one, then comes trouble. I think white is gonna win this game. Most likely, because if black has to give up the queen, then the queen is stronger than the rooks. We have the threats on mate and various double attacks. Okay. So this was the right move. Check. Because if white moves the king back, then there is queen f4. So this would be forced. And now, of course, white has some compensation still, right? He wants to move this rook somewhere and then follow with queen d2 check and mate. Probably the right move is g5. Yeah, with some nice ideas. You always have to think counter-attack. That's your counter-attack. Now black wins by checkmate. There is no cover from d2. And here, I think I'm gonna win by checkmate. Am I? Okay, very likely that black is gonna win anyway. On rook d2, in the worst case, I can just start grabbing pawns. I take h3 with check, and then I take e5. And that should be enough. 3 extra pawns. So g5 clearly is the key move to beat off this attack and give your own queen a support square. But Sedipov missed that and played a terrible move, queen c3. Oh, there was queen h2 in that line. Oh yeah, indeed, there was queen h2 mate. Sorry, I missed that. Thank you. But anyway, black was winning. But in this position, black is not winning. He only won the game because in terrible time trouble, Jumabayev went king h2. Yeah, after king h2, of course, it was over. King takes g5. And there's just nothing. Queen e4. Nothing to be done against the black king. And loads of material ahead. Well, well. What about this one? Now we're talking. Knight takes f7 is gonna be mate. There's no time to take the rook on d2. What do you do, guys? So I missed the mate into, whatever. You travel for 43 hours to come back from China. Let's see how many mates you will miss. Anyway. I'm not gonna miss that mate. Knight takes f7. You guys play. What? Well, interesting. If you do like queen c4 check, I played g4. You know what? I have a threat. I have a serious threat. What's my threat? Come on, I know Rich. I just banter with him, because I know who he is. Sometimes, you take me too literally. I just like, to get into this. I'm a confrontational person, I like to say mean things to people, but I don't really mean them. Okay, I don't mean the mean people I say, the mean things I say to people. I don't mean it. It just sounds mean, but in fact I don't mean it. How about meaning of that? Show me the mate in 2. What is white's threat? Knight h7 and g5. Hi, Peach. You're the man. How do you stop that, eh? Well, so it looks like you're gonna have to keep everything pinned, right? It's not gonna work. It is not working. This. The most ridiculous thing about this position, imagine if white had no queen. He's just gonna laugh at me, I'm laughing at myself. Imagine if white had no queen. Now I could have played queen e3, it would probably be winning. I chose to play rook d4. But in this position, take off the white queen from e1. What does black do? The threat is all the same. To take on f7 and g5 mate. How's that for your, I don't know, Christmas surprise? Something that you find under Christmas tree when you wake up in the morning. This position, without the white queen on e1. Isn't this ridiculous? Maybe I won't have a redundant pawn on h3. How does this help? Takes and then mate. I blocked the 4th rank. There is no more pin. That's why I put my rook on d4. I'm serious, I'm playing without the queen on e1. Can I move this queen? Just erase that queen from your memory. It's not there. Black is ahead like what? Up the exchange and the queen. Seriously? Even without the queen on e1, I think white is winning. Yes, instead of queen c4, rook c7. Plays this move anyway. I know, yeah, this is pinned, but now it has the same threat, knight f7 and g5. I mean, the power of this move g4 is just ridiculous. With no queen, you play queen c7. Rook c7. I take on f7 once again. Why do I need a queen? Okay, let's do this line again. Who needs queens? We don't need queens. So this was a bad check. Once again, no queen, and I play rook d4. No queen on e1. Why you playing rook c7? I take and then I mate. We've been through this, guys. Now, there was a better suggestion. Rook c7. I played g4 anyway. You know what I was thinking? If it wasn't with that pawn on b7, maybe somehow, some way, black can sacrifice all three of his pieces and gain stalemate. But it's moot because the pawn is on b7 and cannot be given away. I don't know if there is any salvation. You tell me. What do I know? I'm just a weary traveler. Okay. Was looking at something here. Rook c7, g4. Anyway, I think there is no defense here. None of these positions can be... Well, if you don't take on d2, if that doesn't do anything, then it's only gonna get worse. Eventually, white is gonna somehow make another threat. Somehow put the queen, you know, somewhere like that. And besides, he already has a threat. This. Ah, okay. Yeah, let's try that. Let's pin the pawn and... yeah, how much help is that gonna be? Endgame, endgame, endgame. This thing looks permanent. This whole setup, this whole thing just looks totally permanent. Endgame. Just totally winning here, white is. I mean, with the rook completely tied down to the 4th rank, because of this business of knight f7 and g5 check, I can do anything I want, right? I can actually play e6. Yeah, why not? White is winning here. Stop e6. Let's stop in e6. No, right, I might have to win in a kind of a trivial way. Yeah, this is not beautiful. It's rather crude, but it's winning. So anyway, well, pretty lucky on part of Tsidipov, and unlucky on part of Jumabayev not to find king h4. Well, yeah. So anyway, there were a lot of games like this in this tournament. I have one more. One more here. So now that's Tsidipov going against Richard Rapport, and that's round 8. Richard had a terrible tournament. At the start, he looked so flat. He had some games against people I don't even know who they were. And it's like he has the white pieces and he gets absolutely nothing going. I think he lost one game and then he had some kind of disappointing draws. Well, he made this trip to China with his wife. She's a chess player, Yavanna Voinovich, I think her maiden name, coming from a chess family. She's a good player of her own, 2300 plus. And he played a league, a Chinese league matches, and then this tournament. And now he's playing in China again against Wei Yi. And I know they split first 2 games. I don't know how the third game went. Oh yeah, that maneuver, get the rook to h8. That's sweet. Yeah, well, I think I convinced you that. I don't think queen b4 would help. So anyway, and but rapport is rapport, you know. He always plays exciting chess. And here his opponent, Tsidipov, just decided to oblige. Now, this is gonna go wild. Yeah, there is this kind of gambit. Knight c6 is a rare move, but interesting. And white replied in a standard way. But after this, I think white made a mistake. Tsidipov himself, after the game, was very unhappy with his move knight c3. He said he totally missed queen g5. You know, you get some kind of unusual opening moves, and then you miss a standard idea you would have never missed on the, I don't know, the black side of the French. Yeah, bishop comes out too soon before the knight, and then this is going to be attacked. Yeah, from practical point of view, white indeed should have avoided. Queen e2 is much better. f5? No, well, this is how the gambit is played. Maybe I take her. No, well, if I can remove the pawn, then I have the firm grip on the e5 square, beautiful bishop. Chances to go knight c3 and castles long, or whatever, knight a3, knight c4. Looks great for white. How many players I know in your life who could only aim at that winning position for black? No, I don't know. Well, I mean, you cannot win for white. Okay, I got that, but how do you aim at that, you know? It just happens, you know, like the chess game takes its own direction somewhere and then feels like you have very little control over where it's going. You just have to... Chess is a game, so don't overestimate the value of planning and anticipating everything. Chess players like to talk big after the game, particularly after they won. They want to make it look like they had everything under control. Kasparov was real big on that. It's not objective, really. I mean, Kasparov was just pulling your leg, really. You know, he was not in full control. I saw him play. I played him. I mean, even with Magnus Carlsen, with anyone, you know, the game has twists and turns, and it takes you some way. And maybe it's better not to pretend to be a master of control and just be like Nakamura. Nakamura doesn't care about control, right? Nakamura actually takes pride in his ability to read and react and deal with new, ever-changing situations on the chessboard. Well, he's not even pretending. Well, in fact, you know, I don't know what I would take. The ability to control everything from move 1 to the last move in every game and every variation. That's what Kasparov claimed or strive to be, versus Nakamura's, oh, I can handle anything, just whatever. I don't know what's greater. I mean, Tal certainly was closer to Nakamura in that department, I think. So anyway, here I like white, but knight c3 was played. Now watch this. Queen g5. Oh, g3. It's depressing choice. I probably, well, you know me, I take intuitive decisions, and particularly when I'm in good form. And I played intuitively for half of the tournament, and then, I don't know, the day off, you know, and the tournament dragged too long. You know, I'm not used to this. I'm used to playing 9 games in 5 days, you know, not in 10 days. It felt like the tournament ended. I felt the same way in Tekkerdam, by the way. I played much better for 6 rounds before the break. Here, I don't know, I would have done this. Down a pawn, but your pieces are playing, and, no, well, maybe you can make something happen. Some kind of blockade on c5, some kind of a Some kind of jumps with the knight. G3. Anyway, knight f6. Now this is good. Well, that part Richard played very well. King d7, who cares? Forces the white queen in the back, and now great development. This is forced. Now black has extra pawn. No exchanges. So black completed his artificial castling kind of by hand. And now great sacrifice on e3, and now he just has it all, right? Hits f4, white has only weaknesses. Black's got better development. Correct decision from Tsidiepov, just give up the pawn on f4, which black probably had to take. Yeah, take on f4, black is better, but no, maybe game is not over. So Rapport decided to play for checkmate. So there it comes. Coming to d3. And now probably white made a decisive mistake by playing queen b1. The most fascinating line would begin with the move queen e4. So we discussed this after the game with Jamsaran. Later I asked Richard, he said, oh, well, I don't know, I didn't look that deep. I worried about this because my knight is stuck. Well, indeed, if black plays this, then white should be a little careful. This is not good because knight d3 is possible. You take that thing and then there is bishop takes f4. Yeah. Deflection, and then it gets the knight on g3. Black goes up 2 pawns. End of story. No rush with this. Perhaps just rook g1. Now, rook g1 does not stop the deflection idea, but it protects the knight on g3. So if black plays nothing, then we're gonna go after the knight. And this is no longer that good. Only 2 pawns for a knight. Now, if black instead is forced to protect this knight with the bishop from a3, well, then not just one, the 2 pieces are quite misplaced. White should just go rook c1, rook c2, right? Rook h2, rook c2. I'm not even sure we need to trade our rook for 2 minor pieces. We actually might. This is also playable. Yeah, look at Nimzovich, or something similar. But this is even more exciting, this b3. No, look, you know, it's part of it. You have to intimidate the Pedone Rossa. Think about, you know, like these guys, no, they have some kind of image to create and then maintain. Know it all, see it all, never make mistakes. They're actually different ones. I mean, they don't like admitting their mistakes. It's sort of it's almost like politicians, a sign of weakness. No. They may say, oh, I forgot, I blundered, or whatever. But I didn't know, or I didn't understand. You don't hear that much. No. I don't know, if it's a combination of rather inflated ego. No, it's hard not to have an inflated ego when you're a child prodigy and everybody fawns over you and you're like, I don't know, the most brilliant, the most talented, whatever. Not everybody grows up megalomaniac like the former world champion I was talking about a couple minutes ago. I mean, most of chess players, they remain kind of normal people, but no, well, still. I mean, listening to Kramnik, right? The Kramnik absolutely refuses to acknowledge that no, his game is not as impressive as it was years ago. He still talks like, oh well, I think I have it in me to beat Carlson, and okay, well, he's not gonna make it to the match, but even if he did, I think he would regret if he did make it to the match. He's certainly no Karyakin, stamina-wise and nerves and all that. Maybe a greater player than Karyakin possibly is, but it's not enough to be a good player, as Zigbert Tarash famously said. You have to play well. And I'm not sure Kramnik can play well anymore over the course of a match like this. Anyway, so returning to all that. Okay, not impressive. So we looked at this, right? I came up with an outrageous idea here. We analyze it a bit with Tsedipov. Now, this is out of this world. Now, the point is to try to open the e-file against all odds. So on this, that. Preparing rook 8. Oh, clicking the wrong thing. I have to play these moves again. This is the very last thing we're gonna look at today, guys. The ridiculous move f5. So white takes. And says, great, I got the bishop. Well. Then it begins. Rook h, e8 check. No, knight e5. Well, this. And that. No, certainly no back rank. But then there's rook takes d4. Somehow this knight on b2, instead of being a isolated piece and cause of headaches of all sorts, becomes a pretty good attacking piece. Now I looked at different things here. The rook d3 check was interesting, and some other stuff, but I mean this. Goodness, to put the rook on pre like this. Well, that has a pretty point. Mate. Otherwise what? Attack on this guy. On the queen. Maybe there is no defense here. Now everything's falling apart. This one. e5. You name it. I think black is winning here. Anyway, so this is the final thought for today. In the spirit of the crazy games that we looked at today, perhaps even this can work. Okay, well, here's what I'm gonna do. We're gonna return to this tournament. I have to look at my games a little deeper. Honestly, I came back a few days ago. I came back Sunday, but I have to catch up with so many things. Honestly, I didn't have time to prepare much for this show. I just thought I'll show you those games because it's exciting, but my own games, they need a little bit of work. And also I want to go over these pictures and give some kind of pictorial report. Well, pictures worth 1,000 words, and but a position like this, a move like this, f5, I think it's worth 1,000 chess variations of some boring anti-Berlin. No, okay, just my opinion. Alright guys, thanks for staying with me, and I'll talk to you again next week, but, well, for all of you, Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays. Take care.